Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today at General Mills. This is the September TC Tug. We're so excited to have you here. I'm Megan Lukanen. I'm with the steering team for the TC Tug. Also happen to be a General Mills employee, so we're especially excited to be here. Today, we'll go through a welcome. We're going to do an inclusion contact, get to know a member. If you think you might be interested, for any volunteers for get to know a member, there is swag. So you get kind of first dibs at swag, Tableau swag. And then we're going to hear from Rick Hoffman about getting to his experience in building a community of analytics here at General Mills, and then we're going to hear from Ryan and Patrick about their write back extension implementation. I know that's kind of a big scary thing a lot of companies are afraid to tackle, and General Mills went head on. And then if we have time, we'll get into a best thing we've learned, kind of that group therapy where we get to talk about what you guys are going through. And then we're going to head downstairs for a happy hour. So like I mentioned earlier, there's some snacks over there, but we'll be heading down for like real food and drinks. And for anyone who didn't come today, just remember that come next time, because we're having a party here today. So a big thank you to General Mills for hosting us on that. So one of the things that I really like about working at General Mills is that we're big into inclusion and diversity. So we started, I think, quite some time ago as kind of an effort to become more inclusive company. We started beginning meetings with inclusion contests. So I figured might as well start this meeting with one too. So since I've just been here a short 4 months, but in the time that I've been here, I've learned about different religions, different cultures, different disabilities, LGBTQ+, all sorts of different things. So it's really cool to learn about all these different places. It's not just something General Mills puts on our stamp that we're inclusive, but kind of fun to see it in practice. So today we're going to talk about developing for color blindness. This kind of feels like a great avenue. I actually was having a discussion with a colleague just the other day when I saw a very red and green table. And I was like, that's not very colorblind friendly. So just to keep this in mind, so 10% of your population has some form of color blindness. Most commonly, it's a red-green. So how do you tackle this conversation when your user comes to you and they're like, I really need some red and green? So the first thing I always ask, do you actually need both red and green? Because if you're highlighting everything, then nothing is important anymore. So typically that'll kind of start this thought process of, well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. If they really need two colors, this is a personal preference, but I like to do red, and then whatever your primary corporate color is. So the primary corporate color for General Mills, I like to make things that are positive or good. I like to make them blue because it just makes everyone feel good. If you work for a company that's green, maybe you choose orange and green. If your color is red, 3M, I don't know. Let me know what you decide to do, because I haven't tackled that yet. I've always worked for a blue company. So that's what I go for. And then, of course, if you can't get around this red, yellow, green stoplight, try to use some non-color indicators like those arrows, or putting a dot next to something that just brings more attention. Maybe you bold that text. With that in mind, has anyone, maybe we'll start in the room here first, but has anyone gone a different way in developing with color blindness in mind?
So you do, you have to repeat them.
Yeah. I'll repeat for folks on the call.
So if you pick one color, it's do that like really tight version of it, and then the other one have it for a light and leave it really highlight the contrast. So they can't, they're still not seeing like the red versus green, they're just seeing the difference in the vibe.
Yes, so Serena was just mentioning to use contrasting color. So if you use a brighter version of one, maybe use a muted as your secondary. So that's a great one. Anyone on the call, would you like to unmute yourself and say how you've done it? All right, I will take that as we covered the majority of it. Okay, so with that, we'll go through some upcoming events. So October 4th is She Talks Data. This is a great place to just get to know other women in the area. They talk about more than just data, just kind of what it's like to be a woman in the workplace. There's a Power BI meetup. Typically, this is at Surly. If you want to go drink beer and talk data, this is a fantastic place for you to go. The League of Data Leaders, I don't know, Serena, do you want to come up here and chat? I'll let you cover the rest of them.
Okay. So the League of Data Leaders is really just a place for people who run functions or have, more responsibility for like building a data culture inside your organization. People like Rick. Just, because we're all trying to do the same things. And so it's a place that's meant for those people to get together and share what they've tried, what works, what doesn't work, to the extent that they can without, giving away any trade secrets. I just think there really shouldn't be in that space, but yeah. The Enterprise Analytics Online it's an online conference put on by Dataversity, and it's a full day conference. There's a whole slew of just super amazing topics that cross the gamut. So if you need another online conference to attend, it's free. So get on that. And then Mini YADS is a conference that they've been trying to put on for like 3 years now. And it is finally happening, and there are quite a few women in our Tableau community who are speaking there. And so if you haven't been to a mini analytics event before, they are usually really, really awesome and really well attended. This is the first one. I think this is the first one they've done since the pandemic, right?
And it's free.
And it's free also. So would just love to see like a super great representation of our people there. And then the next Tableau user group is October 27th at Fueled Collective in Minneapolis. Hopefully we can get a bigger room than we had last time, because we were standing room only. Okay, perfect. And that's also free. And I think the majority of these, with the exception of the Enterprise Analytics Online, are on Meetup. So you just go there and you can type in like data, and hopefully all these will come out. Yeah. So, all right, cool. Thank you. Yep.
All right, we'll start in the room, but is there any other events or announcements that we missed? Oh, yeah. I know you have one.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk up here? Sorry. Otherwise, people will be able to hear you like crumpling your paper. So we have the mic up here.
Okay. Yeah, so I work at Relieve It Med Systems, and I am looking to hire a senior BI analyst who would be mainly focused on developing Tableau dashboards and really kind of managing our end-to-end Tableau cloud instance. So we're a small company, so I need someone who can do it all.
And I can vouch for her. I used to work
We
with
work together.
Anyone online? How many do we have online?
50-ish.
Wow. Fantastic. All right. All right, so I already alluded to this, but the first person to volunteer for our Get to Know a Member gets first dibs at our swag over there. So who would like to volunteer? All right. Okay, but you have to come up here. the fastest we've ever had a volunteer.
I'm swag, right?
Yeah, what?
So my name's Adam Plunkett, and I actually work for Tableau. I'm relatively new, about 4 months in or so. Before that, I worked for SC Johnson for many years in our Target office downtown. My role, so I mean, I've done lots of different things. My current role is account exec in sales, but I've done sales, I've done category management, supply chain, insights, shopper marketing, kind of a lot of the CPG stuff that goes on, in this office. What type of, or this city, what type of data do I analyze with Tableau? So I used to do a lot of POS data, a lot of shipment data. Like those were the two things that I was in all the time, like trade spend, like promotional, like that stuff I would do in Tableau. And then like ad hoc data analysis. So survey data and things that we're doing from like consumer insights, things like that. So lots of retail focused data is like where I spend a lot of my time. And I will say my favorite to work with was shipment data, because our shipment data that we had, like the front end for it, was horrible. Like you couldn't get any information out of it. So being able to use Tableau with it, I was able to unlock like a lot more information, which was fantastic. How long have you been using Tableau? I got Tableau desktop in 2012, I think. So I was a desktop user for like 10 years. I got like very comfortable in it. So my skills kind of like really started in 2012, 2013, and then kind of plateaued because I got what I needed out of it. But so what are you good at? I was good at, I didn't make dashboards so much because I was consuming it myself, but basically I would use it like, how do I say, kind of like individual pivot tables, kind of in like every Monday morning I would go in and kind of like go through all my 50 spreadsheets, like Tableau sheets, worksheets, to see like what was going on. I think I got pretty good at doing things. We were talking about how we highlight data. I like to do like varying shades of gray and then like dark red to kind of get things pop. So I think like the visual aspect I was pretty good at. And what features or functions do you struggle with? We were talking about this earlier, but like when I was using Tableau, it was very clean data that was coming out of systems that I was, very familiar with. The data prep aspect of it is something that I'm kind of new to and trying to understand a little bit more, because that is something I didn't have to deal a lot with, but now I'm dealing with a lot more. So that is me. Any questions?
Awesome.
Cool.
Sweet. Thank you. All right, anyone online? We don't have any swag for you, but oh, Serena says we'll mail you some swag. So first to unmute. Anybody?
I'll go. I'm Christina Lynch. Hi, so yeah, I'm Christina Lynch. I work at General Mills. I'm the assistant marketing manager on the Box Tops for Education team. Right now, I don't actually work in Tableau, so I'm here because I'm interested in learning more about data visualization. I work with a bunch of dashboards that our brilliant analysts have created for us. And I've been doing that for like, I'd say the last 3 years. I started the Box Tops team in 2020, so I've been doing actually just over 2 years now into the pandemic. And I'm good at coming up with Excel spreadsheets of dashboards that I want to see in Tableau and passing that to our analysts. And they actually build these amazing Tableau dashboards for me. And I struggle with just understanding how Tableau works. And that's why I'm here today. And I'm hoping to learn a lot more.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. We'll get you some swag and set it aside for you. Awesome. All right. Let's do, so before we jump into Rick's presentation, we're going to have Brian Cromer come up. Brian is the one who gave me the budget for this event. So make sure you give him the attention.
Hello, Brian Cromer, the money man, as Megan affectionately refers to me as. Very happy to have you guys here. Welcome to General Mills. I'm glad we have such a beautiful day for you guys here in person. Folks calling in, we're in this beautiful room here in Golden Valley that overlooks like a pond and some trees, and after this, we'll go and continue to build community by sharing some food and drink together. But we're so lucky to have Megan help put this together. So a round for Megan and all the people on the committee for making this happen and giving us community. Megan asked when she joined our team in May, I think it was the first week, she said, hey, can we have Tableau user group here? I said, absolutely, sounds like a lot of fun. So really supportive of, you know, building community. At General Mills, we have a very large community of Tableau developers from our group. So I lead our enterprise data viz team. So over 90 folks who are working in a number of different technologies, predominantly of which is Tableau. But at General Mills, we have people all across the organization who are using Tableau, both consuming, but also using it for data analysis and developing for their team. So really excited to kind of show our passion and our maturity in the tool and hopefully trade some ideas with everyone in the room. So again, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us if you're able afterwards. And thanks for throwing the party. Yeah. Brian Cromer, Money Man. So remember that.
All right, take it away, Rick. It's all yours.
I'm up here talking about community practice, which is very related to this group. So I was also going to say thank you. Very appreciated from somebody that's very involved with building these. So thank you to the team members that get this going. I'm Rick Hoffman. I'm a business intelligence architect here at General Mills. I support our entire enterprise globally with myself and Jennifer Vogler. I don't know if Jennifer's in the room. We're a dynamic duo that like to go and tackle all of our BI tools and think about how we balance the right tools for the job and how we govern the systems and make sure we get the right processes in place to make sure we can scale, keep costs down, secure data, but also enable, right? Make sure people can find those insights they want and things don't get messy. So that's my role mainly at General Mills. And so thanks for being here. I'm going to talk about a analytics community. So internally, we have a community of practice here at General Mills. And oh, I went backwards. There we go. So I'm just going to give you a little overview about a community of practice. We'll talk about like what a community of practice is briefly, why we have a community of practice, and then we're just going to get into the how, the run. So the aspect of what do you guys need to do if you want to start a community practice and what that takes. And it's going to look a little different for everybody, depending on your organization. And different organizations are going to have different culture. And you're going to have, you know, really supportive organizations and maybe some that push back on why you want to do this. And it might vary depending on your size or industry and, you know, your how, you know, globally you're spread as well. That's part of the challenge here is we're a global organization. What's that? Stay by the mic. Okay. Thank you, guys. So what is a community practice? I just grabbed a definition of that. So community practice is a group of people who share a common concern, a set of problems, or an interest in a topic, and who come together to fulfill both individual and group goals. So we're all here today doing the same thing. We've got a community of practice here across Tableau, across the Twin Cities. And we're really here to learn, network from each other, right? And similarly, you know, that's part of what we do at General Mills at our community of practice, but it's a little different, right? There's a little twist to it. And that's where you've got to kind of look at your organization and what's different. So why a community of practice and how this all kind of got started. Self-service came along, right? Tableau was part of this revolution of, hey, let's democratize data. Let's get it out there. Let's analyze it. Let's go and grab Tableau desktop and put it over whatever data I want. And I can run with it. I can find my own insights, right? That came along and organizations started reacting to those things. We took a very centralized BI team that kind of threw the stack, all the way through the data stack, through the developers. And then we had a central team and everything kind of had to go through that funnel, right? And then all of a sudden this idea came through, well, we want to get people closer to the data. Let's move our skill sets closer to where the business is. And so we started decentralizing. So that was one of the reasons we kind of started talking about community practice, was this decentralization of our skill sets, giving more agility back to the business. They know their data, they know their metrics. Let's let them do it, right? And so we started allocating people across the organization, and also we didn't have a central team. So One of the other things we did though, was we kept our hosting and our system administration and our governance centralized, right? So we can talk a little bit about why that is. And so it's this kind of balancing act of all these different things that go on in an organization. Like, how do we keep the costs low? How do we keep things consistent? How do we get those best practices? You know, but we still want to give that agility back to the business. We want them to move quickly to what's important to them, right? Instead of funneling everything through one small pipe, right? How do we let them react? How do we let them run their business with their metrics, their insights that they understand the best, right? So we started decentralizing some of this, right? So we got these nodes, like you got the little graph going, of pockets. So how do we keep that connected? So we came up with, well, let's do a community of practice. It was a cool insight that we kind of came up with. I think it kind of sparked from a Tableau conference back in 2016. And then we had some good leadership that had some initiative that said, let's do this. So we came together, system owners, like the owners of the Tableau account, the admins for Tableau, the developers, the architects like myself, came together and we said, hey, we've got these concerns. We're worried about our teams being spread out, that we're going to have a lot of this chaos going on. Like, we don't want chaos. We want to keep things running smoothly. We want people to be able to react, but how do we prevent the chaos? How do we not have duplicate efforts, right? Well, let's kind of come together and decide like what we're going to do about that. So we did that. We got alignment and said to our leadership and said, hey, we're going to start a community of practice. This is why it's important to us. This is why it's important to you. We talked about all those things about, hey, we don't want chaos. We want to keep things under control. So that's why we would like your support. We got that sign off. And we talked about like where other places it came from. So like I was part of a community practice at another organization. So I had a little bit of like, hey, background in that too. Like we run it a little different, but centrally it was nice to have that kind of central voice and that way to kind of get that broadcast out there. And then we found passionate people around the organization that kind of had this belief of like why we should keep doing this. And we found a variety of people. Then we went and wrote all those things down. We met and said, okay, what's in, what's out? And we kind of brought those goals together and we formed a steering team. And then with that steering team, we also talked about like, well, how are we going to get our messaging out there? Where are we going to come together? How often are we going to do it? And, you know, who's going to be responsible for executing and doing things? So we kind of came up with like, who's that community? Who's this going to be? Who are our stakeholders out there? So we got our developers, people creating like Tableau dashboards, BI, other tools as well. We're in scope. We said all of our BI tools are in scope because we want that balance. Maybe Tableau is not always the right tool. Maybe it's another tool. There's other tools out there. We don't want to be too close-minded on that. We also knew that we need a variety of folks. We need people from building. We need people that are analysts that know the data so they get an idea of how to use the tools. We want to get people like solution managers that are out there like talking to the business of what their needs are. We need to hear those voices too. So we talked about that. And we also talked about being a global organization because we wanted that scale. We have a very large organization, but we want to utilize that scale. And there's a lot of great ideas, a lot of great individuals out there. We want to hear their voices. We want to show out to the great organization what's possible. So we came up with our objectives. We said we're going to be cross-functional. We're going to cross all domains. So we're going to go to sales. We're going to go to supply chain. We're going to go, you know, to marketing. We're going to include everybody. It's inclusive. We're going to share across those domains. And our objective then, let's promote ourselves. Let's go out there and say, hey, we're out here. Let's get you guys involved too. Let's pull ideas from you and promote your ideas to other groups. And we'll get that cross-functional innovation happening, that incremental, like, oh, that's a cool idea. Maybe I'll add something like that to my solution. And then also at the same time, we want to get that consistency. We want consistency in like our messaging on how we do security. How do we do self-service? How do we stand things up quickly and easily for you? So you'll hear from Patrick shortly, one of our admins, like he doesn't want to get bugged with the same question over and over and over. So like, how do we get that messaging out, how to do things well? How do we get content out there that helps you do those things easily and smoothly, right? All right. And with that, you know, our goals are really to increase tool adoption. right? We want to get the most out of the investment of what we're putting into these tools, right? We spend a lot of money. Tableau's not cheap. All right. So we want to get the most out of that investment, right? And so part of that is getting engagement, getting that usage up, get really good solutions out there, get the insights out, right? And we wanted that self-service, like how we wanted people to spin things up quickly, be able to get what they needed to get to when they could, right? So how do we get that moving smoothly and consistently for everybody? And then we also just want that engaged community. Like, how do we keep the community moving? How do we get it to kind of thrive on its own, right? So it's not just one person, but everybody's kind of being involved, or a lot of people are being involved. So those are kind of the goals. Like, if we can do those things, it'll keep things moving. All right, so kind of get into this run part of the presentation. So a little bit more about logistics of how we run it. So we have a steering team. We meet once a month. We meet for an hour, and it's really about ideation and kind of coming up with our main event of what we do. We run a monthly meeting that we present out to people. It's usually around an hour, to the greater community globally. And we kind of ideate over some topics that we think are important, try to grab those innovative things, try to grab those educational events, trainings, all those types of things. I'll talk a little more about that, kind of come up with that, and also kind of just hear what's going on around the organization. What are people struggling with? What are some successes you've had, right? It's really good feedback for me as an architect to hear those things, because like, how do I take that back to my main job of like, how do we improve things? How do we come back and make things better and then communicate it back to the community? And then encouraging participation. So I ask our leaders just to say, hey, who else is involved in your organization that could help us showcase something? You know, what's going on in your area? Do you have somebody that could bring something? Like, kind of keeping a roadmap of like, when's this going to be done? I would love to highlight that. Or what are the challenges? Come talk about it. And then, you know, keep serving up those champions. Like, it's good recognition to get people involved. So like, tell me who's doing a good job. Tell me what's working. And then if they want to get involved and showcase something themselves, be a champion too. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to sit in the back seat. This is what our steering team looks like. So we've got, you know, 10 people, I think, on it right now, somewhere around there. And really just kind of trying to bring themselves, bring their domain knowledge, right? From wherever they sit, if that's sales, marketing, on the other side of the globe or not, bring that with you so we get diversity across the organization and hearing different messages. And then, yeah, what is your role? Like, you know, are you a solution manager? Are you an analyst? Are you a developer? Are you an admin? Are you an architect? Like, we've got a variety of people across the organization, and we try to hear those voices across the board. So, you know, again, the topics we cover, showcasing, like, what are the cool things happening out there? What's innovative? What's new? What haven't people tried? What should they be trying? Trying to pull those kind of solutions out there. It's really fun. I'll talk a little more about it, but getting feedback with like, oh, hey, that was cool. Like, do you have the video from that, the recording? I'd like to go back and watch it. It's like, oh, all right, we had a good one. We'll talk about tool best practices and governance and tips, like getting those messages out there. We know we keep hearing like, this is a struggle in doing this. So here's how you should do it. Or, you know, here's something you might want to watch out for, you know, so you can run smoothly. Tell your, you know, majority of users, this is what they need to be doing. Or here's a best practice of like how to get your people signed up for the right security. Like, you know, those are common themes, right? How do you get that messaging out there? Here's a cool way to do that, consistently do that across the organization, even though you're running as individual teams, right? Platform updates, we like to bring that too, since we have such big platforms we run, Tableau and other tools. Like, when's the next upgrade happening? Hey, be ready for that, because you're gonna have to do some testing for us, you know? So people like to know that. They don't want to go live with something when they kind of trying to balance this testing stuff and making sure things are working right versus like a solution, you know, release they might have. You know, learn about other members, like we just heard earlier. It's really great to hear people, even our organization, like how to use Tableau, you know, who you are, and it gives those connection points. Like, they might reach out to you, like, oh, I heard you're really good at this, you know, or you know, if it's an admin, like, oh, I know you now, and I don't feel so bad reaching out to you, or vice versa. It's great to kind of hear that messaging and get people included and make sure they feel like they're valued. We'll talk about roadmaps, tool positioning, like what's coming down the pipe, what's something new you might get. You know, what's coming new from the next release of Tableau you might want to think about using, or what's changing. We'll talk about those things. And then we'll talk about those training and events. We host a few trainings that I don't know if it's part of the community practice, but I will help kind of lead some of those trainings we do. And I try to get people involved across the community. Hey, you're very involved, or you speak up a lot. Would you give a training? Would you talk about that? Get those people engaged, you know, get them giving back. And then sometimes we'll occasionally have guest speakers, which is really great when we get a guest speaker to come in and kind of change things up and give me some new ideas and new approaches. These are the channels of just kind of like the way I was thinking about, like, how do we kind of connect with people? Our big thing is the monthly meeting. We have office hours out there for Tableau right now. They're kind of running. We get some decent participation. Seems like in the past we haven't had a lot of participation when we did in person, but now all of a sudden we had this pandemic and then people are remote. You have a remote meeting and now people like call in and they participate. It's like, oh, it's great. So that was kind of an interesting take. I think that's mainly kind of what it's been, but it seemed to work out. We'll do other trainings, like I mentioned before, and I've really pulled on people from throughout the community, said, hey, would you give a training? It's okay. You know, like, it's great because people like to be asked sometimes about, hey, you've got good skills, would you lead? And they're like, oh yeah, I'd love to. I'm like, oh, great. So just asking. We have a content library out there, like the wiki we maintain, like those best practices and how we should do things, governance, things like that. We have a wiki out there for people. We advertise that. We have social, so we use Yammer internally to kind of broadcast messages, kind of a good place to discover like what groups are out there. And then we have a community webpage where they keep some of this content out there. Like all these things are out there, as well as how to get to the wiki or past meeting recordings. If you want to go back and look at some things, all out there too. All right, so what are those keys? So just kind of sum things up of things you can kind of take away. Get passionate people, right? People drive organizations. Find the people that are passionate, ask them. That more than likely will be happy to be involved. You can identify those people. Ownership, accountability, priority, sponsorship. So I saw Megan the other day. It's like, who's watching the kid? If everybody's watching the kid, nobody's watching the kid, right? So if you're a parent, you'll know this one, right? You're all of a sudden talking to each other and it's like, oh, what happened? Oh, that meeting was supposed to get scheduled. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, we missed our monthly meeting, right? So make sure you're accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Get that sponsorship. Get your leadership to hold you responsible for this. Like, it's on my priorities to say, hey, we're doing this as a community. Here's my measurement of how I want to be measured on this. And it's a priority for me. So at the end of the year, this is on there. So it's my priority. It's one of my priorities. So make it that for you too. All right, reach out, talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask. When you start asking people or make use of your voice and saying you're welcome to contribute, people will come back. People will help out. So don't be afraid to ask. Even those quiet people, sometimes they, encourage them. Say, hey, I love what you did. Would you share? And yeah, go share. You just need to ask. We've been able to get other people from outside the organization to come and talk to us too. We had a Tableau Zen master come and talk to us about a year and a half ago, and she was awesome. Chantilly Dragunov, she gave a great presentation to us, and it was great to have her. We've had some guest speakers from Tableau, and they did a great job. So I think those are really fun to have and bring into once in a while to kind of change things up. Yeah, and then I think, that last thing again, I can't say it enough. Like, people like to be acknowledged. So have that encouragement and positivity and say, hey, that's great. That's awesome. Would you show it at this? Would you show what you did there somewhere else? And kind of reaching out, and they feel inclusiveness, and it really helps kind of contribute back to the community, and they'll bring more ideas to you. And then lastly, how do we measure, right? That's the other thing. We're data people. We got to measure this stuff, right? One of the ways we kind of look at it is like attendance is a good way. Like, how many people we got here? We got engagement, right? We got people here and in the seats. That's great. Or online. That's awesome. Feedback. I love hearing feedback. Like, when you hear feedback of any kind, at least people are engaged. Positive or negative, that's great. And if they have negative stuff, like, how do you improve? That's great. I want to hear that, right? I can take that back and we can do something different. Yeah, questions, suggestions, any way you can kind of reach out and say, what should we do differently? I think is a good way to do it, capture that. Try to sometimes capture it in ways that, you know, if you have introverted people, like give them a form or a poll or feedback form to kind of fill out and pull back in, capture some more of those ideas. All right, and I think we're at questions. Anybody have questions? Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, I got one. Oh, go. Is it Quincy? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious if in your community you try to have, if it focuses entirely on Tableau, or if you tried to bring in other tools. Like I work at Mayo and we have a lot of representation, not necessarily in our Tableau groups, but generally of Power BI, starting to work with ThoughtSpot and just a Looker. There are a lot of new tools coming around. Do you build that into the community, or do you see those as staying separate?
We elected in our kind of our objectives too was to be global in all tools. So we're not biased on tool. Tableau is our primary footprint, but we do have other tools too that we do talk about in our meetings. So we have that platform minute. We do give updates on each of them for sure. You know, sometimes we kind of rotate around who gets showcased on what tool and for what. And part of that is like we talked about, part of our jobs as architects is just to say, are we using the right tool for the job? So we want to make sure people are aware of other options that are out there.
Great, thanks.
Hopefully that answered it okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
it did.
Do you want to come up or do you want to repeat?
Either way, what do you want to do?
Either repeat.
Okay.
So is there any kind of like unspoken base level or prerequisite level of tech acumen, data literacy that is like maybe not required is the right word, but where someone who didn't have that might feel a little bit lost?
Yeah, right. So yeah, identifying that audience. Yeah, so the question was, is there any level of technical efficiency, data literacy, maybe that who's included in our audience? Yeah, I think that's a balance, right? I think even when we were trying to come up with topics for this, like who's the audience is going to be here, and I think we've had a variety of people come to the meeting, and it kind of varies. You know, I think our main people are probably our data viz people that are building out data viz stuff, but we do have analysts and solution managers that come as well because they want to hear what's possible with the tools, or they want to hear about when something's getting upgraded. So they'll kind of bounce in every once in a while. Like I'll see them come in and just on the attendance reports and stuff like that we have, and like who's coming in and who's attending. But that is our primary focus. It's just mainly the people that are building things out. But we do know that we have the other stakeholders out there that are influenced by it, and we do want to hear the messaging from them. That's why the steering team has a few of those folks on it too. But yeah, it's a big organization. I think part of one of the challenges too, I was going to mention this on the slide, so is we have a very global organization. We have one meeting a month, and so like window of opportunity globally to talk to everybody at once is limited in the morning. And so a lot of these we call product teams or pods also have all their team meetings in the morning too. So trying to get a balance of attendance of like when the right time is to like get everybody together is tricky. But we do record the meetings so people can catch them afterwards, to try to hit as much audience as possible. But yeah, that is a little bit of always a tricky point, is like, how do you get a little variety in there? Any other questions? Go ahead.
If you were going to redo it, like start from scratch, would you do it differently?
Yeah. So would we do anything differently? Again, Patrick, did you have a comment, Patrick? Patrick's understood. Yeah. Yeah. Would we do anything differently if we did it from scratch again? I think, you know, recently I just kind of did a little bit of a refresh with the team, with the steering team, and Brian was a little bit involved too. Like who else do we need to get from the organization involved? Like, I think when we first started, it was a lot of admins and developers. And I was like, well, we got to get some of these more line of business people out there and get some fresher voices a little deeper in the business. Like, what are your concerns? You know, where do you see opportunity for us? with the platforms and whatnot, and what would you like your people in the business to hear or do or be able to do? So I think it'd be nice, it'd been nice to kind of get more of that up front. You know, the sponsorship or the ownership changed a couple of times, and two, you could tell when you didn't have somebody that like didn't have the time to make it a priority. So I think right away, like just having to make it a priority for somebody to be accountable for it always helps. I think that's varied, and so we've had I think we started in 2017, so 5 or 6 years we've had this going. Yeah, I think I can definitely tell when I put more time into the meetings myself, you know, the meetings come out better, get more content out there. So I always feel that when I don't have a lot of time, it's a little tougher. So I think just having that upfront kind of on your priority list carved out is important. All right, hold off there.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so next up is Ryan Hurtado and Patrick Phillip. Ryan, I believe you can go ahead and start sharing your screen.
All right. I'm sharing it now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, hold on here.
All right.
Here we go. I just got to move you to the screen that I'm actually sharing here.
Okay.
And we'll move Ryan over too. So Ryan was planning to be in person and had some COVID in the family. So he kept his germs home. We're very thankful of that. But then, yeah, Patrick, do you want to, or is this, all right, perfect. All right, take it away, Ryan.
All right. Thank you. So today we're going to, Patrick and I are going to be chatting about an extension that we are really trying to ramp up within our teams. So it's the write back, a specific write back extension. We'll go through a couple key items today. What's the problem that I identified this as maybe a solution? How does Tableau handle some of these items right now with the Tableau Annotate and comments? What was our solution here at GMI? We'll talk about this idea of a BI analytic workflow and then provide a demo. And then we'll go through the infrastructure, why we picked the tool we picked, what the system, how we set up the system, what our infrastructure is, and we'll end with questions. So, what's the problem? I'm sure we're probably unique in this, but we have end users that use our dashboards that want to provide insights out to their teams. So I'm sure this is unique to everyone, but we also have our teams want to tell a very unique story and a specific story, not only for that's repeatable every single month, but unique to a specific time frame, a specific product, specific instance. And so they also are looking to document actions and track actions or issues that might be arising during meetings. So really, we are trying to figure out how do we provide managers insights that at specific data points that can change month over month or week over week. How do we assign business actions with key dates driven by analytic insights? So not only an actions log, but also based on data that while you're presenting to say, here's senior managers, look at this specific item. It is in red this month. What do we need to do? Take the action items, that specific instance, and save them, get agreement on, and work towards implementing the action. How do we save that information over time? It's a complicated item. What do analysts often want to provide their own voice? Often what that means is folks will save data in Excel. They'll take data out of our databases, our dashboards, they'll throw it into an Excel pivot table and then add in commentary, which is super easy and useful, but we want to make that a more standard process for folks. Also, teams are starting to move to this concept of a decklist meeting. So that means no PowerPoint presentations. They're spending time putting decks together. They're spending time building out Excel reports. How do we make this more automated, which is one of Tableau's specialties, but also provide that analytic component, that storytelling component within their tool. And the last item here is providing feedback around some of our analytic models. So we have a slew of teams that are building out information for our groups. We can theoretically, we're having trouble getting understanding of what if those models are actively doing what they're supposed to, and getting real-time information around that. So Tableau provides a couple different use cases for this. So the first is Annotate. So it's a great tool, a great function. You can allow text boxes, build out text boxes to show information directly into visualizations. You can see an actual demo here of this. This is straight from the Tableau website. What you're doing is basically calling out a specific data point within your data for that specific period and giving more context, calling out, highlighting a specific item. The issue with this is that you can only do it as a Tableau designer. You cannot do it real time, and you cannot save that information unless you're designing it in Tableau. Our end users are unable to do that or are not technically capable yet of doing those items. The comments section is something more like a tweet. So those are immediate conversations that can go back and forth. Those conversations happen at the dashboard level, and users can track actions, but sometimes it's hard to understand who's got the action and when to follow up and to do additional reporting out of that. So that's another option. We found that those two things really were useful, but we weren't able to implement them successfully. So just a couple quick notes about our structure within GMI. So we have enterprise business intelligence analysts like myself. Our job is really to serve as designers for our enterprise across our business. Our business partners, on the other hand, they're very functional specific. They have a business level acumen that we don't have necessarily all the time, and they have very specific team knowledge. So you can see where some of that could be an issue when explaining data out to end users. Again, our team, our BI analysts, really design the dashboards. We provide analytic tools as a self-service, where our business partners are pulling data from our self-service tools to help try to understand and explain the business story, but sometimes lose the ability to provide that custom analysis that their teams really have and are able to provide. Our team provides technical expertise within Tableau and other data related tools, where our business partners are not super savvy all the time, and they're using Excel or other methods because they're unable or untrained in Tableau dashboarding creation. And then our team, our business analyst team, is able to, business intelligence analyst team, is able to help establish best practices across the team. So really, it's again that concept of a centralized and a decentralized process, right? Our business partners need that decentralized ability to provide that real-time context, and our team is setting up an infrastructure where we are establishing those best practices. So what do we do to make sure we continue to tell the story? That's kind of where write-back extensions come in. So a write-back extension allows dashboards to close many of these gaps by continuing to tell a story documented by users at the lowest levels, and either documenting a specific annotation or an issue that they need to, a comment that they want to make about the data, or tracking issues and actions as a result. It allows end users to provide analysis. Users can pull information about historical periods and save that data. Users also have the ability to save business actions or issues in real time, as I mentioned, during meetings, which is a key component to making sure that users are looking at information, senior managers are seeing data, and understanding what actions need to happen and delegating those out real time. And then in addition to that, not only do we have the ability to save that information, but of course we need to be able to report that back and keep track of that information as well. So this brings up this concept of a workflow integration within our BI tool. So this is a maturing concept within data analytics. It's really just to provide that single pane of glass user experience. And it really does provide an ability for us to build out efficiency and accuracy for both documenting issues and providing those stories. Faster insight to actions, a key concept. Our end users are able to do that extremely quickly and provide that up to senior management. And really it's making sure that everyone's part of that analytics process. So we're going to go through next a quick demo to show how we've built this out. A couple key things to note. My specific team was going to implement something similar to this. We did not go down this path. And so what we're going to present today is a demo of Superstore data. It's integrated with our process and in a dev environment. Is not production ready dashboards. So please, if you see something that you don't care for, just know it was thrown together for the presentation today, just to explain the concept. All right. So I'm going to refresh my dashboard here. Is everyone still able to see a dashboard? All right, great. So a couple quick things about this dashboard. Use case for this, while I was building it out, was teams are managed by category. There's an individual responsible for a technology team, an individual responsible for office supplies, an individual responsible for furniture. This is a monthly report, and so what you'll see here is that the users are entering data. Let's say this is the month of January. It's just kind of a snapshot at that time. Then the next report is another snapshot of time in February. So it's kind of some context setting this up. You can see across the top, users are looking at some key KPI cards, and they've got some maps. But most importantly, in this specific instance, because I am a technology manager, I need to understand within my technology group what subcategories are performing poorly and what actions do I need to take on those items. So let's envision I'm the manager, not a senior manager yet. I'm not an executive, and I see, okay, I'm here within my month for technology, and it looks like we're doing year-to-date profit is down right now for machines. I'm really I need to make some comment and call this out to my senior management group. So one thing I can do is I can click this add comments here. The specific tool that we're using, this right back extension, allows us to pick a specific measure on the chart. In this case, it's specifically designed to look at just the subcategory item. As soon as I pick this item, I can then make a comment that I designed behind the scenes that is tied to a SQL Server database. So behind the scenes, I set up for every time I click on a button, I'm going to collect the category, I'm going to collect the reporting month, and I'm going to collect the specific subcategory that I'd like to report on. And so the reason I'm doing that is now I've got all this data behind the scenes, but I would say I'm going to choose to make a comment here that I'd like my management team to see. I'm also going to put a quick description to say TUG is great, but our machine's profit was not. This function allows me to save and close this item. And now as soon as I click out of my sheet, it goes back to blank. If I hide my comments here, what you see is immediately, now I have this comment that I've added here. The process that my team generally would go through is now that I've made this comment, I can go present this to a senior management staff. And I'm going to explain my story. I've got my information. I can either present it as a table or as another chart or some components that I'm providing those real-time analytics. So the end user gets the ability to provide that story. It's very custom to them. What do they want to call out? What do they want to see? So if I changed my group and I'm actually an office supply manager, well, my comments go away. The reason is, again, because I'm making specific comments at the intersection of category, at reporting month, and that subcategory that I had. And so that this information is no longer pertinent. And now as an office supply manager, I can go in and tell my story and explain what's going on within my teams. So again, I'm going to go through, and maybe this time I'm going to add another comment. I'm going to pick storage. And now I'm saving at the office supplies, the month, and the storage component. I'm going to add actually an action just to show you what this looks like. And for actions, I've asked users to set up a space. So this is another function within the write back item. I can select multiple types of inputs that the user can go through. In this case, it's a calendar item, and I'm going to say I want this to be completed, have a due date of September 5th. So they get a long time, of course, because this is a year and a couple months later. But I'm going to say by 9/5, need to have systems implemented. So this is my action. I'm not, you can have users put whatever comments and provide a specific amount of information that they can, a number of characters that they can input. And again, I'm going to save this information. Click out of my report and hide my comments. And you see not only that specific category, my comment, but also my date that I saved. So super important. If I, again, switch any of these data components, I'm going to be using a different level of a subsection. And so if I want to go out and pull a historical and save this information for December, I've got, again, a historical record saved within a SQL database, saved within the confines of what I would like my information to save at that intersection. And the user is able to save that data. In addition to this, at a specific user component, you can set up this, your rule, your information to be saved at the dashboard level as well. So you don't need a specific item, but you can allow the user to enter data as a whole, or really pick whatever information is applicable for that specific instance. Of course, it's going to take some time to load on me now. So so the way that we were implementing this on our team is a deckless component. So again, I'm prepping for a meeting, I'm sending out a manager to my manager, all the different pre-meeting materials that they need to see. But then as I'm being called into action for a specific item, I need to make and call out a specific component, some action items that I think I'm going to be either responding to or highlight a specific call out that maybe we had an achievement on our team. All that information is just put into a table, and so I'm able to. I apologize. I'm not sure why it's freaking out here. So all the information is saved in a way that I can get behind the scenes and use it as a tooltip, use it as a label, use it as I mentioned, bar charts or any other information. Theoretically, you could use it as similar to what Microsoft has for surveys. That's kind of another way that we've envisioned using it with our data analytics, our machine learning and data science team, where users could say, hey, this is not giving me what I'm expecting, and I'm off in this specific item here. I'm trying to. Can everyone still hear me? I might be disconnected from the internet here. Yeah. Okay. So I apologize for this. I'm going to close out and show what happens behind the scenes here a little bit. So if I show my button here, what the user is actually going to go through is this is just an extension that's being pulled in through the Tableau objects. A lot of teams don't necessarily use extensions yet. We decided to, as Megan alluded to at the beginning of our call, to leverage this because we feel like there's some value there. And this is a very secure, the version that we've gone through has gone through security design, a security assessment, and some other key components and considerations that our team wanted to look at. Patrick's going to cover all those, thankfully for us, but we'll quickly kind of show what this interface looks like. So if I click on the configure the specific data point, what I have the ability to do everything's taking some time, is take a look at every single worksheet that I've got loaded on my page and pick whichever worksheet I'm trying to make a specific comment about. So in this case, you can see my comments about my year-to-date profit by subcategory. What you're then able to use behind the scenes is, again, really low to no code information where you're hooking up and just attaching different components behind the scenes. So this is a rule that I created in a web application behind the scenes. It sets up the data model, it sets up the table and the fields that I need to mark against. So I'm just identifying that and providing that into my design. If I'm the end user and I'm not sure how to build a table, the application does that for me behind the scenes. So it really is very low to no code implementation. But then I'm setting up my unique ID that I've got to my sample store, my Superstore sample set. Users can do single point or bulk editing mode. This isn't necessarily like true bulk editing, it's row by row, but you can cycle through the records. But you can see here where I hooked everything up, right? So I've created a field behind the scenes with a comment category, comment month, and comment subcategory, and then I'm linking them to either an annotated row that I'm clicking on as a user, a parameter, or a filter. I can also have a static field that I can enter that value in manually. But this makes this report extremely dynamic, saves the information in the way that I need to show to my end users, and report that, most importantly, report that back real time as well. There's some controls that you have around things like, how does my button behave? When can I show the end user that screen that I displayed? If you click on an item, you can have that pop up and hide any other time that somebody's not able to make a save to the model. So a lot of customization within this specific version of a write back tool. And we found that this was a good one that met all of our needs specifically. So I'm going to pause. That was a lot of information. Does anyone have any specific questions that I can try to help answer right now around this?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Please.
So I guess I'm not sure exactly what the use case is, but when you add a comment or an action, is there editing capability, or would you ever want to edit or delete, or for the actions, mark them as complete?
So you can edit an item that you've already saved. So it would replace or keep a historical record of your item. So theoretically, you could create a completion date field, track that information within the tool here in Tableau, so the end users are able to access it through the web as well. So that is extremely customizable based on the information that I had set up behind the scenes. So in this case, you can see actually I saved a specific record already for this intersection between furniture, the month, and I can make adjustments to that and resave the information, or again, establish that completion date, set up selection items based on radial buttons, drop downs, whatever I need to do to make sure that this is a true workflow for the end user, and all encompassed within Tableau. Great question.
Hey, Ryan,
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, this is Rick too. I think the other thing to think about is you can filter, right? So if you created a field that was like a checkbox, a true false, you could actually filter out anything that's true. So if you completed something, right, you could filter out completed items when they come back into the dashboard.
That's right.
Pretty flexible in that the way you could do it. Start thinking about that workflow. Garrett had a question that will repeat for him. So Garrett, what's your question?
Yeah, I was just calling on. I may have missed it.
Yeah, so Garrett's question was asking if you can use like our Active Directory, which is our directory system for our users, and how that could be incorporated into notifying people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, do you want to take that or should I?
Go ahead, Rick.
So I played around with this quite a bit too. So one of the reasons, Patrick will probably touch on it too a little bit, is, but yes, that it can notify people via email, or in our case, we use Microsoft Teams. It can send messages out via that way too, and that's also in the setup process. We haven't played around with it too much, but it can use our Active Directory groups. So like our security groups to notify groups of people or people within those groups. Patrick will kind of touch on a little bit of that in a moment.
Use that for security as well, or permissions on who can make comments.
Yeah, yep, and it's one of the reasons we went with this tool. Patrick will get into that. So the question was, can you use that for the security of who can make comments and all of that? Yep. Yes, you can use that for who is allowed to create rules and who can submit. And then there's also an approval process too. You can approve a record to actually show up or not.
Maybe to make sure that we cover all those technical questions, we can, Patrick, if you wanted to chat through, and then if there's any other questions at the end, we can cover them in more detail. I will stop sharing this then. I'll pull back the slide deck, if that's okay with everyone.
There's a question in the chat about if it's in the Tableau gallery or if it's a paid extension.
Yes, the one that we used is a paid extension. So you can, we did a survey, we basically looked at multiple vendors for this before selecting the vendor that we liked, and it is a paid extension in this case. So what did we look at when deciding which one to go for? This is an enterprise, and we need to support thousands of users on Tableau server, hundreds of workbook creators. So we wanted something that was scalable. We wanted something that would be easy to roll out to lots and lots of people, because I didn't want my entire day to be manually setting one person up for hours and then move on to the next team. It's not how I want to spend my time. So we needed multi-tenancy. We knew that this was going to be larger than just one group. Ryan might have been the first use case that was proposed, but we knew that potentially every area within the company might want to use something like this at some point in time. So it was going to be important that we could keep people's data separate, that nobody had to worry about, oh wait, this is top secret data, it's not for the entire company to see, versus this is a public dashboard. The enterprise solution, we needed to be able to provide it to everybody. We needed to make sure that we could implement security, that it was friendly. It wouldn't be too difficult for people to figure out how to use. This was some of the criteria, that we were able to set up notifications. So our two primary notifications were through email and through Microsoft Teams. Again, as Brian already said, very little code in terms of trying to implement that. And it was really important for us to automatically integrate with the security systems that we already use throughout the entire company. So as we mentioned, we use Active Directory for all of our security. We kind of wanted to just continue to use Active Directory, because now I don't have to set up as an administrator a whole new second system that I need to try to mirror and synchronize with the primary one. That would have been a nightmare. So we chose one that would definitely work with the security system we already had. And yes, we can control not only who can access it, but how they can access it. So this particular extension has the ability to say who can create a rule, who can set up the dashboard, who can actually make comments, who can approve an action or a comment for proceeding on. And it's all done through Active Directory security groups in our case. So the fact that it integrated was a big selling point for me. And then, of course, it's always important to have your CRUD. The fact that it would be easy for us to create, read, update, and delete different items. Just a really big deal for us. Would you please advance? All right, so here is just a really brief architecture diagram. We use Windows. There are systems that definitely work with Linux. We use SQL Server in this case. And the architecture diagram all centers around the Tableau dashboard. Inside the Tableau dashboard, it uses a write back extension, and we have installed that extension on a custom Windows server within our environment. So anytime that extension needs to write back to the database, it's going through a server that I set up and own, and it's using that to write out to the annotation data source, which is just another database. And so as a Tableau developer, you can take that data and pull it right back into your report in any way you deem fit. And so it's just that loop that we have set up. If you would advance one more slide, Ryan. If anybody is familiar or heard about a presentation that a Tableau Zen Master made at Tableau conference multiple years ago, when extensions first came out, there were security concerns about them. And it was demonstrated to us live at the conference. Here's how you can use an extension to steal data. Security was a big concern. We wanted to make sure that nobody could take the information that was inside the dashboard and steal it, take it out to a competitor, right? So we made sure that this extension is wholly hosted within our network. It's not making any calls outside of our network in order to operate. We put the vendor through a third-party risk assessment to make sure that they had adequate business practices, they were fixing their bugs, they were addressing security concerns. We just wanted to make sure that if we were going to be trusting this after demonstrating the risk, would we be safe putting our data in this vendor's hands? And in this case, yes, we have full control over our own data and our future. We just needed to set up the necessary infrastructure first. I believe that was the end of it. So
There
if
he
there are
is.
any other questions?
My question is that how will the annotation data source and the primary data source for the data in the dashboard,
So the question in the room is, how does the data in the primary data source and in the annotation data source get together, blending? Ryan, you want to demonstrate how you actually get those two together?
Why, of course, sure. Yeah, so behind the scenes, what I set up, we've made a connection now to the sample superstore. Then I set up one data set for an output, one data set for an input. So in my input data set, there's a couple filters that are required based on the tool that we're using to make sure that we get data effectively. And so behind the scenes, it sets up all the information, my user information, what time the information was saved. It's got, as I mentioned, kind of a field that saves the filter, any filters that you had set at the time, any parameters that you had set at the time, and then the fields that I've set up behind the scenes. So what happens at that point then is when I come back here, I'm just blending the data with setting up a blend. The first component is just to my input to my reference ID or my primary key. And then in this case, it's going out to the subcategory field. Once that's the case, there is a couple more steps that are required. Basically, you have to include at least one field into your visualization that you're trying to track. And then that will allow the two tables to speak just like a normal blend would happen. One thing I wasn't able to test out would be whether or not a relationship or the noodle could be leveraged. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, but I didn't get enough time to test and make sure that that's the case. I think, Rick, can you correct me if I'm wrong, that you implemented the noodle possibly in one of your versions?
Yeah, so I've done it both ways initially. I did, sometimes with blending, it gets a little tricky when you got multiple grains of data going on, right? You can get errors. So I actually tried a relationship model and that worked much better to bring the data together. So it actually felt a little more flexible. And from what I've read, a lot of times we don't need to do data blending much unless you've got an extract going on between two different sources. A lot of times you can get away with the same type of functionality and have some actual benefits from using the relationship with multi-connections. So behind the scenes, there's two connections going out to two different databases in this case.
Anything else we can help show or explain?
Cost performance, yeah. So we haven't had a ton of use cases, but if you really think about it, we're not writing out a lot of data. We're not reading in a lot of data from that annotations where we're saving it off. Like Brian wrote out one record at a time. So we don't think it'll be a lot of issues with that. It's not going to support certain use cases. You're not uploading a whole Excel spreadsheet of 10,000 things, right? That's not what this tool is meant for.
Something to think about is that observations or actions at a specific management, specific part within management's interest. So it's less records than looking at a detailed record.
Yeah, we were just thinking about your primary use cases. Like in this case, it's just annotation. So a couple comments every week, month, right, isn't going to really be a lot of data to push through. Yeah. What's that?
Every application can be uniquely identified by the intersection. Then why blending? Why not blending?
Right. Yeah, and that's what we said. You could do it both ways, right? And the last time I built one out. Yeah, I would say the reason is because when the vendor built out the extension, the relationships weren't an option yet. So this extension's been around since before relationships. So yeah, like I said, I don't think there's a reason to use a blend unless you're dealing with extracts, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of the data volume, we started small. We didn't think that we would need to support a super large use case. So the backend server is only slightly larger than what we thought we'd need. And we're using a SQL server, which is certainly good enough for small to medium sized amounts of data volume. If it turns out that we start getting a lot more usage, I can easily migrate things to a bigger, faster database or a bigger, faster server.
And your mind starts churning a little bit. You start thinking about the different use cases. The primary use case is annotations, but you can do a lot of other things with writing out. Like I want to save that data point, and I want to put save a value that I want to take multiple times, another measurement, and save that off, right? And record what did I say we were going to predict, sales were going to be this month, right? At that data point, you could read that back in as being your multiplier. You can start doing some of that, but you're not going to be able to do it in super mass where, you've got businesses that are going out and predicting 10,000 different SKUs sales, right? And then want to upload all that. It's not going to do that. It'd be the interactive use cases, right? Where you're going to be able to capture some of those things. And like I said, you can think about that CRUD process. How are you creating it? How are you going to read it in? How are you going to get it updated? And then you've got a lot of flexibility with your filtering when you read it back in on what you're going to keep out, right? In terms of your workflow. So when you design it up front, you got to keep that CRUD process in mind, build out that workflow, chart it out, at what point, what's going to get, thrown out and when it's, going to get created. So I think you can think of a lot of different use cases beyond annotations when you start doing this stuff. But it will have its limits, so you gotta make sure you're thinking about that. Sorry.
Then all of segment can move from data.
Is there?
Any rollable segment can move from data.
Yes, there is role level security. So just there's role level security on who can read the analytics, who can make the comments, who can approve workflows, who can set this up in the first place. We've decided to do all of that with our Active Directory groups. We use those same Active Directory groups to control who can do and see what inside of Tableau server itself. At the moment, we're keeping things simple until a more complicated business case actually comes up. So who can create this kind of content, who can do the rules, who can do all of that is set to the exact same Active Directory group for who can publish into that folder. So who are the authors? They're allowed.
Like who can see the dashboard and what time. Like, so when you go into the dashboard and you say that this particular according to this particular row and you only see by this group of users.
So the question is, can you have a particular set of data set up with Active Directory? That would be row level security. And yes, it is doable. Certainly within Tableau, although it's easier if you have database support for that. But we have implemented Active Directory security into a role security model at the Tableau layer. Yes, it is doable.
So you say that this person belongs to this department, belongs to this. If you can
No.
create groups and put four Active Directories into that group and then say that this group can see this. So I was just asking, like, is it implemented directly off of AD or off of local Tableau groups inside your server?
So are we done off of AD or local security groups? We use Active Directory. Any other questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. I think I don't know if we have time. Do I? It's 4 o'clock, which is 5 o'clock somewhere. So if we want, we can head downstairs. We've got some hors d'oeuvres. I'll pass out some drink tickets at the door on your way down. But we'll kind of head down as a group. You can feel free to grab a snack on your way down too. Thank you for everyone that attended virtually as well. We missed having you all in person, but next time for sure. So thank you everyone. Thank you General Mills, Brian, our money guy back there. No. But in all seriousness, thank you.